With the new Galaxy Z Fold 7 and Z Flip 7, for the first time ever, Samsung's Fold and Flip both have a cool hidden feature called DeX that essentially allows you to replace a desktop or laptop with your phone. I'll show you how to set it up in a minute, but essentially plugging into any monitor or display gives you a full desktop interface, which is pretty great since your phone obviously has GPS, it has NFC, things that most laptops don't have. It also has all of my accounts already signed in. All of my Bluetooth devices don't have to switch between my laptop and my phone since it's all on one device here, and you always have it in your pocket. So this could maybe also be useful when traveling to hotels or plugging in to share a presentation in a meeting. But how good is this on the new foldable? Specifically, I want to look at the Galaxy Z Fold 7 since I moved over to that as my full-time phone now. But the Flip 7, like I said, does also have DeX for the first time ever in a Flip. Although it's not a Snapdragon processor, it should still be a pretty solid device for running that. So in this video, I want to test out DeX on the Galaxy Z Fold 7, see what's different, what works well with this folding format, and we'll even test it out to make a website using Framer, which sponsored a portion of this video. So there are several ways you could set up Samsung DeX. Of course, you could do it wirelessly if you have a device that is compatible with that. I think most people are more likely going to be doing this using a wire, and you could just have a little dongle, a little USB Type-C to HDMI dongle on your phone, and that would do the trick. You can plug it into anything. However, it will drain your battery fairly quickly. So what I would recommend is you get some type of small hub. Like what I have right here, this is from Aver Media. They just sent it over, and it actually is a really solid device. So it plugs into my wall like a normal charging brick, but it's also sort of acts as a dongle where I can plug in HDMI or USB Type A and run that to my phone. Then I use Bluetooth to connect my mouse and my keyboard, as well as my earbuds or any other speakers you might want. And it's also connected to my watch, so you can have many devices connected to this phone simultaneously. And while you're using it, just a quick little demonstration here on Samsung DeX. So I don't know if you guys can really see that very well on the screen here, but on the bottom, I've got my little icons. And so I can open up like Google Chrome, for example. I could open Spotify, and these show up as independent windows on my screen. I could also press the Windows key or just click this little thing here and see all of my apps. I could search for apps. So if I want to open Samsung Internet, I could type in Internet, and you'll see Samsung Internet right there, and I can open that. And the thing about Samsung Internet that I really like is it's already really optimized for Samsung DeX. Chrome works just fine, but on either one of them, a little tip I have is I really recommend making sure that everything is switched over to desktop site so that it shows up not as a mobile site since you're using such a big screen here. And all of these windows, much like on any other desktop interface you're used to, can be resized quite easily. So I can move them around, I can resize them, I can make them full screen, I can minimize them. There is by default a limitation to just 5 apps. You can get past that, but 5 open at the same time is more than I would usually use anyway. On the bottom left, you have your recent apps, you have your home button that shows you just your home screen right here. You've got your back button. And then on the bottom right, you can take a screenshot. You've got the normal signal and time and notifications and stuff like that down there. And if you've ever used DeX before, this is all familiar stuff. I'm going to talk about some really cool tips and tricks later, as well as why this is kind of different for the Fold. One of the differences for the Fold is that obviously when you unfold it, you have a much larger touchpad. So if you're using this as a trackpad, which I was doing, it's actually really quite comfortable. It's a very large trackpad, and it feels quite natural. If you don't have a mouse, if you don't want to use a mouse, that's actually a pretty good alternative here. However, without a case, it does wobble back and forth just a little, well, just enough that it is kind of annoying to me. So you could either place something under the top right corner, or like I said, you could get a case. Another difference with the Fold is the battery life. Because I'm plugging in this way, I don't have to worry about that. But if you were using this just with a dongle, this is a smaller battery and a larger display than, say, the Galaxy S25 Ultra, and therefore your battery life might be drained a little more quickly. This also has the Snapdragon 8 Elite processor, so very quick. I'm able to do a lot of desktop essentials on here, running multiple windows, spreadsheets, browser, normal stuff like that, as well as editing and exporting videos on, say, Insta360, for example, and it absolutely crushes all of those tasks. Now, I think a good way to demonstrate what DeX is able to do would be to actually build a website using the sponsor of today's video, which is Framer. So if you're looking to build a website, here's some examples right here of websites that we will be able to build, and I'll show you how to start building it out right here. But essentially, it doesn't matter. Any laptop, any desktop you have, you're able to go to framer.com or through the link down below, and it is a no-code way to build professional and beautiful websites. They can be interactive websites. You can have all types of links and images on them. I've built a lot of websites, and this is one that is not only easy to use, but also very flexible when getting started. And unlike a lot of the personal website builders, Framer is really powerful and is built for businesses. And Framer includes some really advanced tools like A/B testing, localization, live collaboration, CMS, so your marketing team will not be limited by Framer. It's also ready for enterprises with staging environments, role-based access control, automatic SSL encryption, and it's used by many of the fastest growing startups out there, including Perplexity, Micro, Superhuman, Read.cv, and a ton of other YC companies. So let's head over here to Framer. I just have a brand new site. They use what's called a section layout. So essentially what you do, you can see all the controls are right here. On the top, I can click on insert. We've got a lot of different things we can add into here, from videos to YouTube videos, images. We could add other sections. So if I want this pre-built section that has kind of this layout here, I just click and drag that over, and that is now in the website. I can then double click on any element, and I'm able to, zoom in and start editing all of this stuff. So you can see it kind of has a Figma-like interface, so your team should really have almost no learning curve getting started with this. So thanks to Framer for sponsoring this portion of the video. Clearly you can see you're able to build a website even on a phone using Dex on Framer. Getting back to some Dex items specific to the Galaxy Z Fold 7, this is the first Z Fold in a little while that is not compatible with an S Pen. So unfortunately, if you want to sign documents with this or something, you can't do that unless you're just using your finger. Now, Dex does operate a little bit differently than what we're probably used to. So for example, if you're using like Reddit or Gmail or something, it's going to pull you out of the browser and into the application. That's not really a big deal. But what it also does that I find very interesting is on Gmail, for example, if I want to reply to this email, it's not going to let me reply within this window. It's going to open a new window, which can be kind of nice. I can actually see the original email there and my response side by side, but it's just a little odd that they have it always open up as a new window. That's just the way Dex is set up. And a lot of the windows you'll notice are going to Dex kind of operates a little bit similarly to like a tablet. So if you have a Samsung tablet, a lot of the apps are going to feel like they're really optimized for that, which is fairly similar to what they're doing. But Samsung adds their own twist on here to make these windows much more manageable. So not everything is going to be optimized for Dex is what I'm saying, but a lot of apps do work quite well. Additionally, some people wonder, like, can you plug in external hard drives or printers or other peripherals? The answer is yes, but not everything will work. So a lot of external hard drives I find do work on here, but some might not be formatted properly, and they don't always they're not always recognized by the phone. And printing, I think, is really cool because you can actually get a free app called Noco Print, Noko Print. So you can see right here, and it's like a kind of weird little free app. Somebody spun it up, and you can see it's like not like the most aesthetically pleasing app, but it works really well. So the reason that you need this app is because a lot of printers have their own drivers that your phone isn't able to communicate with unless you get this app. You tell it what printer you have, you can print photos and images or documents or web pages, and more times than not, it works just fine, and I'm able to print, everything I need to. But this is an example of an app that, like I said, is not really optimized for Dex. So if I stretch it around, everything's still over on the left side. It looks a lot like a mobile app, as you would expect. Now, some more really cool tips and tricks that I would really recommend. One is that you go to GoodLock. You install GoodLock. So if I go to GoodLock, so GoodLock's kind of like a Samsung power user app. There's like a lot of stuff in here that a lot of people do like to use to kind of tinker with your phone in general. But you'll see on here, you can get Multistar and Sound Assistant. Those are the two that I recommend. Multistar is going to give you some cool things like the ability to kind of manage your windows a little bit differently. And then of course, Sound, let's go back to where we were. If I go back, Sound Assistant is the other one that allows you to manage, if you have a lot of windows or a lot of apps open, you're able to have sound play on multiple of them at the same time, or control the sound for each app independently, so you don't just have one master control for all of your music. Maybe you want to play music, but also like you're playing a game or watching a video or something, you can have everything play at once as long as you have Sound Assistant set up. Also, the resolution on this is pretty solid. Samsung Dex resolution is up to 4K, approximately 4K. So this monitor right here is not a 4K monitor, but it's really, really wide. And I find that it's perfectly readable. Everything looks really good. The color looks solid. And I don't really feel like there's too much of a resolution issue here, but you're not able to plug in like, 4K monitors. You can't have, multiple monitors set up with Dex as it is. And the Fold 7 is pretty ideal for video calls because you're able to actually prop it up. So you have the inside camera right there, or you could actually use the rear camera if you wanted to, and just, get a video call using that. Now, because this is wired, like maybe I would put this on the top of my monitor, maybe I would set it up somewhere else so it's not like a total chin cam, but the phone is going to have a significantly better camera than essentially pretty much any laptop out there. Now, anyone who's done any kind of file management on Android knows that it works. It's not the most optimal way to do that. There are other apps out there that can kind of help with file management. Maybe you prefer different styles, but it is all there. You can see internal storage, OneDrive, Google Drive. It's all available, as well as if you have network storage, you are able to access that as well. And like I've been saying throughout this video, the benefits of Dex are that everything is in one place. So you have the phone app is native on here. Messaging apps are all native. Everything you would do on your phone works here because it's obviously your phone. Plus, you now have a keyboard and a mouse, so you can do things faster than you would on your phone. So I find this is actually pretty ideal if you're doing like content posting. So if you are editing a video on CapCut, you can have TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube all open. So it's unlike, doing it on a desktop, which sometimes is more limiting, or some apps don't even let you upload from desktop. But of course, Dex isn't perfect. I think the software is really going to be the main limitation here, where some apps are just not really optimized for this. A lot of apps, like if you're working with Google Sheets or things like that, Excel, they're going to feel more like an iPad style app as opposed to a desktop app, which is fine. You can get everything done, but it just feels a little bit different. Sometimes it's a little bit slower to do some things like that. And of course, obviously some software isn't going to be available on here. If you're using, say, 3D design software, maybe you're using like Creo or SolidWorks, or if you're using like Adobe editing software, obviously those are not available on this. But if all else fails, you could always just run Linux on your phone and access a lot of the apps that you aren't able to get on Android. But in conclusion, every time I make a video about Dex, I'm honestly more and more impressed. The Galaxy Z Fold 7 does a great job. I love how you can just unplug it, and then when you get back, plug it back in, and all of your apps open up exactly where they were. So can this actually replace a laptop or a desktop? For some people, definitely, it's absolutely could. But if you're using some more intense software, if you're using Premiere Pro, SolidWorks, something like that, then of course, like I mentioned, this really isn't going to be for you. But I could definitely see this being a solution for travel, if you have a little keyboard, or maybe as a backup if your laptop breaks or you send it in for repairs. Or this could also be a solution if a family has a bunch of Dex compatible phones and maybe you just have like one big setup everyone can just plug into instead of getting a PC with lots of different accounts. It's honestly kind of convenient. And sure, I have my complaints with Dex, but overall, I think it's a great feature that really only Samsung has.